killed his baby and used in the house.
Okay, you said that he told you he killed his baby? Okay, ma'am, listen to me. What's your name?
The heartbreaking and chilling story of Alyssa and Stephen Plattel is a disturbing reminder of how complex family relationships can become. It revolves around a tragic series of decisions, including adoption, a reunion between long-lost family members, and ultimately a descent into forbidden love and violence. The shocking events that transpired have left scars on everyone involved, raising unsettling questions about human nature, the limits of family ties, and the role of mental health in shaping dangerous behaviors. In the late 1990s, Alyssa first encountered Stephen Plattel online when she was just a teenager. Their connection quickly blossomed, and despite their youth, they married while Alyssa was still in her teens. From the outset, their marriage was plagued with difficulties, financial struggles, emotional instability, and Stephen's overbearing and controlling nature. Alyssa would eventually describe Stephen as unpredictable and manipulative, a man whose volatile temper was often used to intimidate and control those closest to him.
He was verbally, emotionally, and mentally abusive throughout our 20 years together. Did do many violent things. He had nearly beaten to death one cat and did beat to death another cat.
In 1998, at the age of 17, Alyssa gave birth to a daughter, Katie. Overwhelmed by the financial and emotional challenges of motherhood, Alyssa and Stephen made the heartbreaking decision to place Katie for adoption. She was welcomed by a loving family in Dutchess County, New York, where she grew up in a stable, nurturing home, unaware of the difficult circumstances surrounding her birth. For Alyssa and Stephen, the years that followed were marked by lingering guilt and unaddressed emotions about their choice. Despite their troubled marriage, they had 2 more daughters, trying to rebuild a sense of normalcy in a relationship that was increasingly strained. When their second daughter, Denise, was born, it only deepened the strain in their already fragile relationship. While Alyssa doted on her newborn, showering her with love and attention, Stephen showed a marked indifference. He seldom held Denise, avoided tasks like feeding or changing her, and, most alarmingly, would erupt in violent outbursts whenever the baby cried. The tension in the household grew, with Stephen's outbursts adding an unsettling layer to their already troubled dynamic.
She would cry, and it would just instantly trigger him. He would curse, he would tell me to shut her the hell up. He would at times scoop her up and place her into a big cooler that we had. And then sometimes he would just shut it tight. He knew it was possible she could be dead, and he was not fazed by it. So I would finally go back there and open it and get her out.
By 2016, Katie was an 18-year-old with a bright future ahead, an artistic young woman with a love for drawing and creativity. Raised by her adoptive parents, Katie had grown up in a stable environment, but always wondered about her biological family. Once she reached adulthood, she decided to search for her birth parents, a choice that would unknowingly set a tragic series of events into motion. Through social media, Katie connected with Stephen and Alyssa, and the couple eagerly welcomed her into their lives. They saw this reunion as a chance to right the wrongs of their past, overwhelmed with excitement and guilt. Katie moved from New York to Henrico, North Carolina, to live with the Plattels and meet her younger half-sisters. At first, the reunion seemed to be a positive experience. Katie began to feel a sense of belonging, and the family shared heartfelt moments together. But, as time passed, unsettling behaviors began to emerge. Stephen, now in his early 40s, began directing an appropriate amount of attention toward Katie, who was still adjusting to her new family dynamic. As Stephen's behavior became more concerning, Alyssa noticed the growing closeness between him and Katie. He spent excessive time with her, engaged in private conversations, and even began sleeping in her room. Alyssa, alarmed by these developments, confronted Stephen, but he dismissed her concerns, accusing her of overreacting. This only served to further deepen the rifts in their already fragile marriage. By early 2017, Alyssa could no longer bear Stephen's troubling behavior. She left the family home with their 2 younger daughters and filed for divorce. Meanwhile, the bond between Stephen and Katie continued to grow. What began as an inappropriate fixation quickly escalated into a romantic and sexual relationship, crossing into deeply disturbing territory. Stephen preyed on Katie's vulnerability, manipulating her into believing that their relationship was a unique and forbidden love that defied societal conventions. Isolated from her adoptive family and reeling from the chaos in her life, Katie became emotionally dependent on Stephen. By mid-2017, their relationship had crossed boundaries, and they began openly identifying as a couple. In July 2017, Stephen and Katie traveled to Maryland where they married in a legally binding ceremony, concealing their biological connection to avoid detection. The marriage proceeded without interference, and the couple celebrated their union, sharing pictures on social media and presenting themselves as soulmates. Soon after, Katie discovered she was pregnant with Stephen's child, which further cemented their bond. However, the pregnancy also attracted the attention of her adoptive parents, who were horrified by the situation. Disturbed by the nature of the relationship, they alerted authorities, sparking an investigation into the disturbing circumstances. In January 2018, Stephen and Katie Plattle were arrested in Virginia after authorities uncovered their deeply disturbing father-daughter relationship. Both were charged with incest, adultery, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. The news shocked the public, with many struggling to comprehend the gravity of their actions.
These pictures show a happy new mother and father. This link, the couple's baby registry. But this is anything but your typical love story. 20-year-old Katie Plattle is 42-year-old Stephen Plattle's biological daughter.
This is a pretty unique set of facts, I'd say.
North Carolina investigators arrested the couple. Both face charges related to incest and will be extradited back to Henrico, where they first allegedly developed a sexual relationship.
Their crimes, an illicit romantic and sexual relationship between a father and his biological daughter, were deeply unsettling to many. Despite the severity of the charges, both Stephen and Katie were granted bail under strict conditions. One key stipulation was a no-contact order, hoping to sever the unhealthy bond that had formed between them. The courts aimed to disrupt the dynamic and provide relief for the victims involved. For Stephen and Katie, however, the consequences of their actions were only beginning to unfold. After her release, Katie returned to New York to live with her adoptive parents, who had been devastated by the revelation of her relationship with Stephen. The Fuscos, who had lovingly raised Katie since she was a baby, were heartbroken and struggled to reconcile the daughter they knew with the woman now at the center of a public scandal. They offered support, but Katie was emotionally shattered by the upheaval in her life. This sudden upheaval left her feeling overwhelmed and caught between guilt, confusion, and emotional conflict. Her connection to both her adoptive and biological families added layers of complexity to her situation. Stephen, meanwhile, remained in North Carolina, separated from both his wife Alyssa and his daughter Katie. His world unraveled as he spiraled deeper into psychological distress. Consumed by his obsession with Katie, Stephen could no longer cope with the legal proceedings or the growing alienation from his family. His behavior became more erratic, and he often reached out to friends and family, though his communications were increasingly frantic and disconnected. On Thursday, April 12, 2018, a tragic and shocking series of events unfolded that left a community devastated and a nation reeling. Tony Fusco and his adopted daughter Katie Plattle were on their way to Waterbury, Connecticut, where Katie worked cleaning her grandmother's house. What should have been a regular trip turned into a horrifying tragedy when a man in a Honda minivan began following them. As they made their way down the road, the man, later identified as Stephen Plattle, Katie's biological father, pulled up next to their truck at an intersection. Without warning, he rolled down his window and aimed an assault rifle at them. Witnesses watched in horror as Stephen opened fire, shooting repeatedly into the cabin of the truck. The attack was swift and brutal. Tony and Katie, both in their seats, were killed instantly. When police arrived, they found the lifeless bodies of 56-year-old Tony and 20-year-old Katie still strapped in their seats. The gunman had fled the scene, but investigators were determined to piece together what had led to such a horrific act. Just hours later, the minivan was discovered in Dover, New York. Inside, authorities found Stephen's body, having died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The tragedy didn't end there. Earlier that day, Stephen's mother, Grace Plattle, called 911, panicked and distraught.
Killed his baby, and he's in the house.
Okay, you said that he told you he killed his baby? Okay, ma'am, listen to me. What's your name?
She revealed that Stephen had confessed to killing his infant son Bennett before driving to New York. Police responded immediately and conducted a welfare check at Stephen's home in Cary, North Carolina. Inside, they discovered Bennett's lifeless body hidden in a closet. The baby had been suffocated. Stephen had been legally barred from contacting his daughter Katie, but there was no restriction on him seeing his son. This loophole allowed him to take Bennett for a visit, during which he killed the infant in a fit of rage. Afterwards, Stephen drove from North Carolina to New York, where he ambushed Katie and her father on that fateful morning. Katie and Tony were both buried on April 21, 2018, at St. Charles Borromeo Church in Dover Plains, New York. Katie's mother, Alyssa, sent flowers, but chose to avoid the media, seeking privacy during the heart-wrenching time. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, and share the video with others. See you in the next video.